and gentlemen, once again, you know who it is. It's the big guy on the little show. Yes, indeed. It is live and loud with the Lord. I like the pause. Nelson, that is. And I have an amazing guest. You guys just don't know how excited I am about this young man because he does something that I've always loved to do since I was in my early teens. And it's fishing, of course. And ladies and gentlemen, this guy is unbelievable. He's out there, touring. You're on the touring trail. We'll get to that. We'll talk about. You'll let me know how big it is or small it is. But he's a bass fisherman extraordinaire. We're going to talk a whole lot of stuff about fishing, and of course, we'll talk about music. You know, this is about music, but there's going to be a lot about fishing. This is a selfish thing for me. I'm talking too much right now. I'm talking too much. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Don Leffler. Yeah, I got to clap you up.
Thanks. I'm really excited about this. It's we've been friends for a long time, and
yes, sir.
I enjoy the podcast, and this is pretty awesome.
Hey man, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. So, first question I like to ask everybody is, tell me where you're from.
I actually live in New London, North Carolina. I live on Baden Lake. Not sure that you're familiar with that, but it's kind of about probably 40 miles north of Charlotte on Highway 49, going like you're going into Ashboro. We've been here for about 5 years now. Before that, we lived in Concord we've been married for 32 years. We lived in Concord for like 30 of those 32.
Wow.
Or excuse me, about 28 of those 32.
Okay.
And before that, I was actually raised in Albemarle, which is a little town. It's actually right on the other side of the lake.
Okay.
So when I came here to live, it was kind of like coming back home. It was a homecoming for me.
Gotcha. That had to feel good. So what is the best thing about being there where you stay now? Or from where you were born? I'm sorry.
Oh yeah. It's just, we're on the lake here. We always wanted to live on the lake, and it was something that, we didn't do for a long time because we had kids and, they grew up. Now, I'm going to throw a little shameless plug out there for my daughter. I bowled a little bit too in my day.
Right. Okay.
And college on a bowling scholarship.
Oh,
and
awesome.
She's a 2-time national champion.
Oh, that's awesome.
In Pikeville, Kentucky.
Okay, hold on. It's breaking up a little bit. Say that again. She's a 2-time champion. Where now?
She's a 2-time national champion with the U-Pike Bears in Pikeville, Kentucky.
Okay.
And she graduated a few years ago, and so she's living in South Carolina, and my son's all grown up, and he lives up in Greensboro, and so it's just us. And I work from home half the time because of COVID, so they kind of made us hybrid. So I usually work at home 3 days a week. I work in the office 2 days a week, and so the days I'm here, as soon as I'm off work, I'm on the boat and in the water.
Yes, indeed. Awesomeness. So, do you remember when we first met? Where was it?
I do. I believe it was at Tremont Music Hall.
Tremont.
With No Power, No Crown.
Yes, sir.
I was photography, and got to be good friends with you and Steve Coleman, and went around and shot a few shows with y'all.
Yes, indeed. I was wondering if you really remember that, and I was like, because I remember it clearly. And kind of hate that they tore Tremont down, but hey, it was a great place. Great memories there.
I remember when we went to, I think it was Ground Zero in South Carolina. I had no idea where they were taking me. I was scared.
Spartanburg, South Carolina, indeed. Man,
yes,
those were some good times, man. The good times with No Power, No Crown. Okay, so Don Leffler Photography. Tell me more about the start of it and where it stands presently.
Okay, I started Don Leffler Photography in 1987. I had just moved to Concord, and my next door neighbor worked for Winston Cup Scene, which was a magazine in that day. I aggravated him, telling him that he needed to take me to a race.
Right.
So he asked me if I knew anything about a camera, and I said yes. I actually shot some stuff for the annual when I was in high school. So they took me to Rockingham for my very first race. Wow. They gave me a camera because one of the photographers didn't show up, and I went out in the corner, and it just happened that everything that happened that day happened right in front of me.
Wow.
So I got like 30 photos published in the first issue that I ever shot for.
Awesome.
So Mr. Briggs was good enough to offer me a part-time job. And so I shot basically local tracks with them. I shot Rockingham, Charlotte, Darlington, Martinsville, Bristol, Atlanta, basically everything that was kind of local. I did that for a couple of years, and then we ended up, the photo editor that worked there, his name was Don also, and his wife's name was also Cindy, just like mine. And we were really good friends, but we both ended up going to work for Auto Week magazine. And so I shot for Auto Week for about 5 years, and I did the full circuit. They actually paid me enough to where I didn't need a second job. I was able just to work for them. Wow. But the hard part was I was gone all the time. And my wife kind of said, you know, this can't happen. I can't raise the kids by myself. And so I gave it up for a while. I went to work for Duke Energy, and I was a lineman and kind of worked there for a while. But I got the bug again probably about 15, 16 years ago. So I went out and bought all new equipment, digital equipment. And basically I started with John at Tremont. Okay. I happened to be in there one day, and that there was a friend of mine that ran a wrestling show that John always let him put on. Right. So guy had me to come in and do the photography for the wrestling. And then John said, hey, have you ever done any rock and roll? And I said, well, I did a little at one time. And he said, you want to shoot for us? So I basically started shooting some of the bands there at Tremont. Yeah. And, Don Leffler Photography is still going on. It's a part-time gig for me. I do it mostly for the enjoyment. And I just actually did a wrestling show maybe 3 weeks ago up in High Point. Okay. I don't really get to do a lot of music shows anymore. I've lost a lot of contacts in Charlotte that, just always got me in and had me to come in and shoot. So I don't get to do those as much as I used to, but I still do a little freelance stuff. I do some, I try not to do weddings, but I do portraits, and I do some wildlife photography, because that's one thing about here where I live. There's lots of wildlife around here. Deer, fish, birds. There's a little bit of everything to shoot.
Right. Indeed. Okay. So love. So now I saw, and I didn't know this, but you just saying what you said, now it makes sense. So I'm like, looking and doing my little research, it's like, so you're a big wrestling fan. So are you a big wrestling fan, or were you just taking pictures? I got to change it up.
Yeah. When I was a kid, my dad and my grandfather were huge wrestling fans. Right. So I kind of grew up as a wrestling fan, but I guess when I got up about probably 17 or 18, I got to where I didn't really like it anymore. Okay. And I watched it, but I just happened to run across this guy, and because my son had gotten into it as he got older, and I had taken him to a few shows, and that's when I met this guy that had me to come in and shoot for him. Right. So I'm not a huge wrestling fan. I just enjoy the show, and it's a lot of fun. Yes. So I really enjoy that, and seeing a lot of the folks that, wrestled back when I was a kid, like the show I did a couple weeks ago, Jimmy Valiant, the Boogie Woogie Man, 80 some years old. There, he actually, it was so funny. He
was
came
old back then.
he was old back, even older now.
Wow.
But he came down to the ring, and the first thing he did was grab me, and you know how he does the thing about putting a kiss on you. So I told real good for him. I was flopping my arms and spitting and everything, trying to get away from it. It was pretty funny.
That is awesome, man. Yeah,
Yeah.
listen, because we had so much fun growing up watching, Jimmy Snuka, Ricky Steamboat, Dusty Rhodes. I could go on and on. Of course,
Yeah.
Ric Flair. Of course, Tony Atlas, Junkyard Dog. I mean, I could keep going on because when I was young, Mid-Atlantic Championship Wrestling, Georgia Championship Wrestling, they were all out there big time, man. So yeah, as a youth, definitely watched it. And of course, Chris Jericho and Fozzy and stuff like that. Chris doing his thing. But man,
Yes.
no, that's amazing. I even have a few guys that I know. They're doing their best to wrestle. And even Melanie Conley over in England, she's a wrestler over there. And so, man,
Yeah.
listen, that's just awesome, man. That's awesome. That's awesome.
So,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I don't know if you ever remember back, I guess when I was a kid, there was a movie out called Walking Tall.
Walking Tall, yeah. Buford, not Buford. Yeah,
Buford Pusser.
Yes.
Buford Pusser, before he became sheriff, was a wrestler.
Really?
Buford the Bull. He wrestled in the Mid-South. I just found that out the other.
Really? A family of mine, which friends of mine, they're really good friends when I was young, and I'll get to them later on because it has to deal with fishing stuff. But her brother used to wrestle way back in the day. I never knew him back then, but his name was Farmer McGregor from way back when. She was like, "Yeah, my brother wrestled." I was like, "What?" And then when I met him, he was a massive man. He was a mountain of a man. So I was just like, I see, indeed. But yeah, wrestling was, as our youth growing up, it was such a big part of what we did. So
yes.
I had a great time. So when you first saw No Power, No Crowns, what did you think of us? I know it was different.
Y'all were my favorite band. I told Steve that the night that I saw y'all for the first time. I was like, you guys are awesome. I love it. There were several bands there that night, but all were the best, and I just really enjoyed it. And I liked the music, and it was just a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, we just had a great time. Steve is my guy. He'll forever be my guy. But everybody from Jeff to Looney playing drums to Justin, everybody, Matt, who am I? Even Steve's son. I want to make sure I'm not forgetting anybody. I think I'm from James, Jed, Justin, Jeff, Steve. We had Cubby there for a little bit, and he passed. May he rest in peace. But anyway, it was a great time. We did make some great music. I still listen to that music all the time. It was love. I was just honored that Steve wanted me to do that with him. While I was kind of on a little hiatus from doing what I usually do. But it was love, and I'll never forget it. It'll be a big part of me always. And then I got to meet you from it, so that's a beautiful thing to me.
That's right.
So you answered the other question. I don't even have to ask that one because you said who was the best group there that you like. So I like that. I appreciate it. So, well, this question you kind of answered also. So since it's gone, what venues do you frequent now? Do you still go to any shows?
I do. I still love live music. I'm 55 years old, but I still love concerts. I've probably been to over 1,000 concerts in my life.
Right.
Yes. And I'm actually, my wife kind of got on me a few years ago and told me that I was too old to go and then I needed to retire. So I said, you know what, I'll do a farewell tour, just like everybody else, and that'll be it. So that year I went to like 12 or 13 shows that year along. And I had tickets to see Ozzy Osbourne, and I had tickets for Motley Crue, and on the stadium tour. And so you know, it kind of drug out into about 3 years. But my son, I'm a huge Kiss fan. I have been a Kiss fan from day one.
Yes.
I actually saw them the very first time in 1975.
Wow.
I've been to like 42 Kiss shows
And
since that time.
you're just a baby, man. And I know a lot of people I know, just Kiss fans. We grew up watching Kiss.
Yeah,
that was our youth.
9 years old when I went to my first one, but I've seen 42 times. I've seen them twice on this farewell tour.
Wow.
And they're coming to Raleigh in May, and that'll be the last time that they'll be around. So my son surprised me with tickets.
Oh, love.
I and his girlfriend are going to see them. So I had those tickets from Motley Crue. They're not coming in June, but I actually sold those tickets today because Kiss is going to be my final show as like a big stage. Now going to the the bars or whatever to see them, I'm still going to go. Amos, I try to go there a lot.
Right.
Kicks is coming up. I want to see them, and Jackal is coming. I heard, and I'm a headbanger. I love that. Oh yeah, sure.
Awesome, man. That's awesome. Okay, so we talked about the music side of things. Now let's get into let's go to the water now. Let's go to the water. Okay, so let's talk about something I love, and I know you love too, fishing. When did the fishing bug first bite you?
I started fishing probably when I was 10 years old. My family camped. They had a camper. We traveled around and we would camp on the weekends. There was a little campground right here in New London, actually. There was a fish house there called Pat and Nick's Fish House. It had been there for years and years. Right. But they had a campground. They had a pond there, and so I could fish when we would go. And my parents never really liked fishing that much, so they didn't do it very much. But there was a man that camped with us that had a boat, and he invited me to go to High Rock Lake with him to bass fish.
Right.
I caught that first bass, and I was hooked. I would watch Bill Dance outdoors on Sundays because it used to come on then. And then Jimmy Houston would come on right after. And I went out, I bought myself a bait caster, and I watched their shows, and they were telling me how to learn how to throw it. So I set me a 5-gallon bucket out there in the backyard, and I bet I threw it that thing 1,000,000 times until I got to where I was pretty good with it.
Man, listen, still some more of my questions gonna come down there. Everything you're saying, and listen, we're the same. We're the same age. Well, I will be, but it's like, man, let me tell you something. Everything you're saying, every person you're talking about, that's me. 100%. That is me, and that's the thing that I used to enjoy. The family I was telling you about are the Carruthers family. So first of all, quick little story. So my friend Herbert Hill, his name is Butch, but I've never been able to call him Butch. I just can't call him Butch. His name is Herbert Hill. That's what I call him. But he was the first one to really take me on Fort Jackson down here in South Carolina, in Columbia. The first one to take me fishing and really showing me about fishing. I was always nervous about grabbing the fish because they're stronger than people think they are. I mean, when they shaking your hand or whatever, especially if you catch a big bass, it's like, wow, this animal is powerful. But he showed me how to fish, and then I got with the Carruthers, and they lived in my court on Fort Jackson, and we went fishing. 365 days of the year, man, I guarantee you, we went fishing maybe 340 of them. We just went fishing all the time, and we went here and there, and every lake that was on Fort Jackson, there's a lot of lakes and ponds out there. We used to go out to the golf course, out to the General's Lake, catch a lot of catfish, catch a lot of bass. But just like you said, when I caught that first bass, then I really, fishing with bluegill and brim and all that stuff like that wasn't as important. Catching a catfish wasn't as important because it just seemed like catching a bass was more difficult. It was more difficult to catch that bass. And we fished and we fished, and every day. So to Mr. Carruthers and Mrs. Carruthers, she used to cook the best fish. Indeed, they live down in Tampa Bay, Florida now, and hopefully I'll get to see them a little later on this year. But Mr. Carruthers, and then it's Sarah, Ramona, Lori. I'm just gonna name them all because I love them all. Sarah, Ramona, Lori, Troy, and Daryl. So that's the family. And we fished so much. And I was over their house more than I was at my own house.
Yeah.
I mean, just like, when are we going? We're getting up at 5 in the morning. We're going. At 6, we're going. I mean, we fished a lot. And so, and this is, once again, as I'm telling you, this is the reason why I want you on here. I want to talk about fishing, man. It's beautiful. It's almost as much as I love music. It's close. It's real close. So yeah, right, man. So anyway, I'm sorry. I'm tripping. I'm just enjoying myself. So when did it transfer into Don Leffler Fishing, and where you travel to different states and fishing some of the most amazing bodies of water?
I probably, like, I guess when I was probably in my 30s, I fished a lot of tournaments, a lot. But back then, any of the bigger tournaments, you really had to be on the pro tour. And so there were a lot of those around for me to fish. So I basically just fished a lot of local tournaments, and I was lucky enough to win several of those over the years. And then, my kids came along, and I got to where I needed a pleasure boat more than I needed a bass boat, because you couldn't really take the kids out on that. So I got rid of the bass boat, bought a pleasure boat, had it for a couple of years until they got to the age that they didn't want to go anymore. And then, I'm going to go out and I'm going to buy me a new boat, and I'm going back to fishing. So in 2016, I bought a brand new boat. It was a small boat, but it was mine. And I went out, and really, to be honest with you, I was only going to just fish, and it was just going to be me. And that's why I bought the smaller boat. But the first day out on the lake, I ran into a guy, and he said, "I've got a bass club. Why don't you come and fish with us?" So I started doing that, and I got the bug again, big time. And so we fished mainly North Carolina, but we fished, a lot of big lakes: Lake Norman, George Falls, Bugs Island, or Kerr Lake, if you want to call it that, up in Virginia. And, I really enjoyed it. And it just got bigger and bigger. I started fishing some bigger tournaments, and I guess it was 2 years ago, I bought a bigger boat, one that I can take out on these bigger lakes. And that's when I got the sponsorship with Enigma, and started kind of being on pro staff for them. And then the other ones followed. But I'm fishing the Major League Fishing BFLs, which is it's a step down from the Pro Series. It's actually 2 steps down. The Toyota Series is the next step up. But the entry fee for those is it's like $1,500 a tournament. Quite a bit. The ones I'm fishing now, it's like almost $300 to enter. It's but that's a whole lot easier to swallow than if you earn $1,500, you better have some good sponsors. It's going to help. So I got a lot of friends that fish on the pro tour, and you would think that when they go out there to fish on that that's all they do, but a lot of them don't. A lot of them have other jobs besides that. Because those sponsorships don't pay for everything. So it's a tough life. It really is, but it's something that I love. And so I do the MLF, and I do the big bass bashes. They fish all over the country. Last year I was in Guntersville, Alabama. I'll be back there again this October. Guntersville was a beautiful lake, a huge lake, and that is a bass fisherman heaven.
Right. I've seen it many times on, I watch ESPN and watch, it's like you said, the Toyota series and all those things. I watch it.
Yeah.
I really do. So you were saying it already, but so the MLF, Major League Fishing,
Yeah.
you already kind of told me about that. So what about the Phoenix Bass Fishing League? Did you say that?
That's actually what the MLF is.
Okay,
What
let's together.
it started out as the Red Man series many years ago.
Yeah.
And so they were bought out by Major League Fishing.
Okay.
So Fishing runs all of the Phoenix Bass Fishing League, and they put those tournaments on. So it's ran just like a pro tournament. You'll have it, the only thing about it, it's a 1-day tournament instead of a 3-day.
Okay.
But you'll have 100 boats to show up. And it's a really big tournament. It pays a lot of money to win that, and it's a lot of fun. I'm gonna tell you, I've got some friends out there that have won several $100,000 out there fishing, just fishing the BFLs. One of my friends has kind of stuck his foot in the water, and he's fishing the Toyota series this year. Okay. So I'm proud of that.
Awesome. Listen, man, this is awesome, man. So, okay, I'd like you to educate me on a few things. So because I've been looking at things, I just want to make sure I'm right with it. So the Upper Pro Tour is which one? Is that the FLW Tour? Right.
Well, now? Actually, the upper echelon is probably Bass, BASS.
Right.
And so Major League Fishing, which is the upper echelon of MLF. And then they have the Toyota series, which is a step up from the Phoenix Bass Fishing League, which is what I do. But they also do college fishing.
I've seen that.
And there's I think one more that they do, but it's a lot of fun. It's a good thing. I also help with the high school tournaments here in North Carolina. I boat captain for them, because I had something on my Facebook one time that said, "Why are you so passionate about taking a kid fishing?" And the answer was, at one time I was that kid.
Right. I read that. Yes, indeed.
So yeah, that's why I help, and I try to help out and promote the sport of fishing, because if you can keep those kids out of trouble and get them out there and teach them something like that, and it's outside too. They're not inside on those video games, and it's a good thing.
Well, I'll say that my son played basketball. In fact, my oldest daughter, she played college basketball at Wofford. My son played at Coker College here, and even my other daughter, but all my children have graduated from college, and even going on to higher education beyond that, working on PhDs and in the medical field. And so I'm just really proud of them. But my son, I could just remember taking him to Fort Jackson to the golf course. And I always know there's certain places that I go that I know I'm going to catch a bass. I just know it. So I just said, hey, he was like 3, 4 maybe. And I took him out there and I cast that line out there. I hooked that bass and I gave him that reel and that pole. I gave it to him, and I could still see it so clearly, him reeling that fish in. And once that happened, it was on. It was on. So later on in his college career, they asked him, like, what is something that people might not know about you that you enjoy more than anything? And he was just like, when my dad and I get together and go fishing, he said, it's just us. And we have the best conversations. It's just, man, I tell you, I'm an emotional person. I could cry about that. But I was just like, wow, because I understood how much that meant. That meant a lot to me. My dad wasn't a fisherman, but my grandfather, I'm from Charleston, South Carolina. But my grandfather was a fisherman. And I never got to go fishing with him, but, because we were always away because we were military kids. But I was always like, I wanted to go fishing with him so much because he loved it. He loved going fishing. So I always used to talk to him about it. We never got the chance to go, but Yeah, my son and I, man, just to go out there, go fishing. And I never bought a boat because, you know, I was attempting to do music and stuff like that. But I always wanted a boat. I always swore that I was going to be the Black Rolling Martin. I always said I was going to be the Black Rolling Martin when I was young. I really mean that, because I was just like Roland Martin, Jimmy Houston, Bill Dance, Orlando Wilson,
Yeah.
the Linder brothers. Goodness, there's so many more people I know I'm missing. But and I know I'm going to get to a question about them later, so I'm going to stop right there. I'm going to stop right there because, man, Don, man, thank you again, man. I'm excited about this. I don't know if you can tell. I'm excited about this. This is good for me. So, are you working your way into being one of the top tier anglers, or are you more of a regional angler and just enjoying yourself?
I would, if I can get a little more sponsorship, probably within the next 2 years, I plan on fishing the Toyota series.
Awesome.
I don't know. I'll never think that I'm good enough to fish the major leagues. I would love to, but you know, it takes a lot of money to fish that series. But when I came out to fish MLF, I just wanted to see if I could compete with these guys, you know, because there's some really big sticks out there. But after last year, I know that I can. I've got you know, I fish a lot of different places, you know, a lot of different states, and I've learned a lot over the years. You know, just tournament fishing. Like next weekend, I'm going to Sharon Harris next weekend for a 2-day tournament. That's going to be freaking awesome, because you want to talk about some big bass. There, you would really enjoy that place. And this time of year,
where's that?
It's up on the other side of Raleigh.
Okay. Okay.
It's kind of, now the bad part about this lake is they have a slot limit. So you can't keep a fish unless it's 14 inches.
Gotcha.
You can keep fish between 14 and 16 inches, but between 16 and 20, you got to put them back.
Right.
You know, you catch a 19-inch 7-pounder during the tournament, and you got to put it back in the water.
Crazy. That's crazy.
So that makes for a hard day, but it, you know, it's exciting, because anytime that rod in my hand and I feel that little thump, I'm ready to go right then.
What could be better than that? Oh, that feeling is something else. The anticipation of what it might be. So I want to go back to what I was asking, because I went on my story. So is the Bassmaster Classic, is that still the tournament? Is that still the tournament?
Yes, that's the Super Bowl of fishing.
Right. Well, and the reason why I ask is, I guess you know, watching ESPN, you see so much, you see the Toyota series, you see the FLW. And so I was like, wait a minute, are they taking away from the Bassmaster Classic? Because, you know, me growing up, us growing up, that's what it was. Yeah. That was the one, you know. So I was just wondering, so for FLW is Forrest L. Wood, correct?
Yes, that's right.
So that's the Ranger guy. So so he just created his own tournament?
Yep. Actually, the FLW is now MLF, because that was the Red Man series, and then it was FLW, and then it was bought by MLF, and so they're the one that.
Okay, got you. Makes sense. Man, oh man, I just want you to know, like, I'm not as deep as you, but I am a fan of bass fishing. I really am. So, how often do the tournaments take place, and how many do they vary in the days that they are? How many days they are?
It depends on the series. Like the one that I'm fishing next weekend is a 2-day tournament.
Okay.
The MLF BFLs that I fish are 1-day tournaments. I've now if you go to the Toyota series, that's a 3-day tournament.
Okay.
Fish the first 2 days, but you got to make the cut. You got to be in the
right
after that. And like the Bass Tour, the elites, you fish 3 days, and what they do the first 2 days you fish, the third day you have to make the top 50, but you have to make the top 10 to get to fish the final day.
Wow.
So you make it to the top 50 on the third day, and then the fourth day they fish and they only take the top 10, and then basically on the fifth day those 10 guys fish for the championship. Now I know Hank Cherry, he's from Cherryville, North Carolina, and actually won. He didn't win the Bassmaster Classic this year, but he won the 2 back-to-back the years before. Really? And you know, that's a dream that I've had for years and years and years, being able to compete in that. And actually, through some of the tournaments that I fish, you can actually qualify. I haven't qualified for it, but man, it would be amazing to be able to do that one time.
Of course it would. Wow, man. Bassmaster Classic. And you know, like Davey Height, who won it one time. I think he just won it once, but he's from Saluda, South Carolina, not too far from where I stay. Maybe an hour if it's that far. But Davey Height and all those guys. Anyway, I think I got some of the names written down, and some of the bigger guys that have been there for forever, and what they do, how popular they are, and just to see them fish, it's just like the talent level that it goes into what you guys do, the skill, having knowledge, preparing yourself. You know, it's so, in like in most things, there's so much more to being a professional and how you guys handle things, you know, and seeing the way that you guys do things, you know.
Yeah, the thing that I guess I talk about the most, I probably throw a jig more than I throw anything.
Okay.
I just enjoy fish bait. I catch a lot of fish on it. But I've learned over the years to be able to pitch it and skip it and flip it. And that's something that a lot of people can't. And, you know, when you get to the point to where you can flip that thing up under a dock and pull a fish out of there, or you can skip, it'll skip like a rock. You know, it's a lot of time to learn how to do that. I spent hours and hours and days and days and months learning how to do that. That's, you know, I'll take somebody fishing with me and I'll flip that thing out there and skip it, and looking at me like, how did you learn to do that? And I said, you know, it just takes practice. It's just like any. Yep.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So we talked about it before we went live. So, but I've got to ask you a question, because the story that you told was great. I didn't want to stop you when you were telling me, but it was such a great one. I was just like, I knew I had, you know, was going to ask that question. So what has been your largest tournament weigh-in for one day and total weight for a tournament? And I'll get to it in a second.
My largest one day weigh-in was 25 pounds. I had 5 largemouth for 25 pounds. And as far as for the whole tournament, it was a 3-day tournament. It was up at Fontana Lake here in North Carolina. And my 3-day total was 42.5 pounds.
Awesome.
Now, I didn't win. I ended up finishing in 3rd in that tournament. That was probably one of the biggest tournaments that I ever fished in. I won $5,000 for 3rd place.
Oh man, awesome. So I kind of jumped ahead, but excuse me. What's the largest bass you've caught in a tournament, and your largest personal best not in a tournament? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Okay, in a tournament, my largest bass is 10 pounds. I caught it at Stanley Cooper in a tournament down there a few years back. And my largest personal bass is 12 pounds and 1 ounce. And I actually caught that fish right here at Baden about 22 years ago. I had my son with me. He was 8 years old at the time. And he was really into fishing at that time, and he really wanted to learn. So we had came down here. Back then I worked like four tens. So Fridays was my off. So we brought the bass boat down, we put it in, we go out to fish, and it was kind of cool that morning, and he was good with that. But when that sun got up it got warm, he was wanting to go home. And I told him, I said, I really want you to learn how to fish this soft plastic.
Right.
So I said, let's fish this one more point here and then we can go. So we pulled up there, and there was a drought that year. The water was down quite a bit, and you saw stuff that you didn't normally see because the water was down. There was a spot where on that point where a tree had fallen over, and it left like a hole where the root ball had been. So I just kind of flipped that soft plastic up on the bank, and I just kind of drug it off into that hole. So I turned to him. He was on the back of the boat, and I was telling him, son, when you throw it up there, you want to wait for it to hit the bottom and just kind of sit there for a minute. And then you just kind of start twitching it, and you'll reel in a little bit and twitch it. But you want to make that bait walk on the bottom. And it's lizard, and it looks like a lizard, and bass really love lizards. Right. So they'll eat it. So while I was talking to him, I felt that thump on that line. I just kind of dropped that rod tip, and I kept talking to him. And when I finished what I was saying, I picked the line up, and it was going past the back of the boat. So I go and set the hook into this fish, and it was like setting the hook in a stump. And oh my God. And I start fighting this fish, and this thing out of the water, tail walking. It's got eyes like the size of silver dollars. Right. And freaking out, and Cody is like jumping all over the boat. And I had just taken the boat that day. I had forgotten my net. I didn't have it with me, but I finally got the fish wore out. I got it up the side of the boat, and I reached down to lift that fish, and its mouth was wide open, and I kind of missed, and my whole hand went in that fish's mouth up about halfway up my arm. Wow. And I said, oh my fish I've ever seen. So I just kind of put him in the gills with my fingers and pulled him in the boat. Wow. And my son, like, almost, I thought he was going to have a cow on the back of the boat. And we had this little point and shoot camera, and he took a few pictures of me. They didn't really turn out really great, but he did get them. So I didn't have a skill or anything, and we really wanted to weigh this fish. So we put it in the live well, turned on the recirculation pump, and ran to the landing. And we took the boat, and out at the end of the road, there was a bait and tackle shop. Right. They had certain scales. So we got there, we put the fish on there. It was 12.01 pounds. And I was like, oh my God, this is the biggest fish I've ever seen. And the guy said, you going to get it mounted? And I was like, no, I'm going to put this fish back. And I, because I had pictures, and, honestly, back then it was quite a bit to get a fish mounted. And I knew for a fish that big, it was going to cost a lot of money. Yes. We took it back down there, but it was the coolest feeling to take that fish out of the live well and set it down in the water and let it go and just watch it swim away. That was so cool. But I taught my son that day about catch and release, because that's something that I really believe in. I understand people want to eat fish, and brim and crappie and catfish and all that. They can eat those. Right. But those mouth, put those back, because, and people say, why do you want to do that? Well, for one reason, a largemouth really isn't that good to eat. It's going to taste grassy, especially if you catch a bigger one. Right. And if you put them back, if they get really big, they got good genes. And that means they're going to lay eggs, and those fish are going to be really big. Right. And they're going to be, and the thing that I preach about it is, if I put those fish back, then maybe someday my grandkids might be able to catch fish, largemouth, because conservation is a lot. And, there's a lot of places where there's certain fish that are in danger. But, largemouth, that's a passion of mine. And I just don't keep them. I always put them back. All the tournaments that I fish, they ask you to put them back alive. And so that's what I do too. And people will come up to me, why don't you bring me some fish? Well, if you want me to go catch you some crappie, I will, but I'm not going to give you a largemouth. I'm going to tell you another little story on that note. My father has been dead for about 3 years now, 4 years. He was 87 when he died. But back before he got sick, he was in a nursing home for several years before he died. But before he got sick, he used to love to fish. So I brought him one time. I think we went to High Rock, I think it was, because he liked to crappie fish. Went up there and he was on the back of the boat crappie fishing, and I was on the front of the boat bass fishing.
Right.
And I caught bass probably 6.5 pounds or something like that. So I pick it up and I'm looking at it, you know, and I take the hook out and I'm getting ready to put it back in the water. And my dad goes, "Son, you don't want to put it back in the water." And I said, "What do you mean? It's a bass. I want to put it back." He said, "No, you don't. I'm hungry. I want to." And I said, you don't want no bass. They don't taste good." He says, "No, I really, son, I really want that fish. I'm hungry. Can I please have it?" So I started feeling kind of guilty. So I went back there and opened up the live well and I put that fish in there. Well, he ended up catching a good probably dozen big crappie, big slabs. So we put those in the live well. Well, he had just caught the last one and he was back there fighting it. And while he was fighting it, I kind of snuck up there and I opened up the live well and I got that bass out and I put it back in the water. I heard about it. So we got his fish in there and he said, "Son, I'm about ready to go home." And I said, "Okay." So we got in the truck and we drove back to Concord. My mom had passed away when I was really young. So he had gotten remarried a few years later. So my stepmom comes out of the house and my dad's all proud. His chest is all poked out, you know, because he caught these fish. And so she gets him a bucket and he's up on the back of the boat. And he's taking those crappie out one at a and all the neighbors are standing around there oohing and awing over his fish. And he gets down to the last one and he starts looking in the live well. And I'm kind of just there not saying nothing. And he reaches here and he's feeling all around in there. And I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Where's that bass we put in here?" I said, "Bass?" He said, "Yeah." I said, "Ain't it in there?" He said, "No." I said, "Doggone, those crappie must have ate him." And, you know, I never told him the truth until probably about 3 months before he died. And I finally told him. He got the biggest kick out of that because he thought for real that those crappie.
Oh my goodness. That's an awesome story. Oh man. Listen. Oh, that's a great story. That's a great story. Both of those are great stories. So when I caught my biggest fish, so we were on Fort Jackson. A guy that was barber that cuts my hair, I've known for a long time, a friend of mine. We went to fish. So I was like, man, I'm gonna go out to Twin Lakes. And so Twin Lakes was a place where, you know, all the military people usually just go out, drive the cars out, and it's just everybody just out there playing music, barbecuing, doing that kind of stuff. But it was 2 lakes. They called Twin Lakes. So this one lake was the water was down a little bit. There was a lot of stuff in it. Now I hadn't been out there in a long time. And we had gone out to Wateree, and then we came back. We're like, we're gonna go on Fort Jackson too. We were just making a day of it. And it was hot. So I came out there and he was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna get some sleep, man." I was like, "Okay, fine." So I go over there and it's like a hill. And then it goes down and then there's the water. It's like a little cove kind of. Well, there was grass everywhere. There was grass everywhere. But there was one spot that had like a hole in this grass. And I said, man, I looked over there and I saw something move. You know how when you look, you're like, hey, there's something there. Something hit.
Yeah.
So my favorite lure to use is soft plastic. It's a chartreuse. It's a motor oil worm with a chartreuse tail. It's a zoom worm. I will use that everywhere. It's my favorite. I grew up using that motor oil. I've used all kinds of worms, but that is like my go-to thing for fishing. I love it, especially if it's clear water. It's going to do me. I love it. I'm going to use that worm, no doubt. So I took it and I cast it in there and it went down. And when you said the thing about that stump, I felt that thump. When I set that hook, it was nothing I'd ever felt in my life before. I boom, and it just, you know, I was like, man, I'm going nowhere. And the power of it, like, and I could just see the water boiling. And I was like, George. I was just calling him because, you know, it was down the hill and I'm all the way at the top of the hill, not going down to where it is. And all of a sudden he just comes running And he was like, oh my gosh. I said, hey man, I said, whatever I got in is gigantic. I said, I got a big fish on here. And so it fought for a while, but I don't think it had a lot of places to go. Because all of a sudden, once I fought it, then all of a sudden it started coming in. Here it comes. And so I'm coming down the hill. He gets down the hill. I was like, man, listen, please don't lose my fish. So he jumps down there and he reaches into the grass and he grabs it with two hands and he brings it out. There's grass all over it. Man, that fish, I was just like, holy catastrophe. It was just unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I mean, I just will never forget it, that feeling of all those years and then finally catching that fish. I know the Carruthers are always saying like, hey, when you come down to Florida, we're going to take you out here. I was like, I don't want to be by any alligators, so please keep me away from the alligators. Yeah. But you know how many big fish you see Roland Martin catching down there in the Everglades and all those things, like Lake Okeechobee. So anyway, that was a great story. That's my fishing story about, you know, my big bad. So and this is a question I really want to know this one. I kind of know, but I know you can give me the insight on this. So largemouth, spotted, Kentucky, and smallmouth. What's the difference? And in the tournaments you fish in, are you only fishing for largemouth bass?
A largemouth and a spot are very similar.
Right.
The only thing about a spot is they get long and they stay skinny. They don't get really big. Okay. Now, lately, you know, there's a lot of those in Lake Norman, and lately, probably in the last year, we've started to see some 4 and some 5 pound spots to come out of there. Mm-hmm. Now, the largest spot in North Carolina came out of there, and I can't remember the guy's name, maybe Guy Eaker, but it was like 6 pounds, and that's the largest spot to come out of North Carolina. Okay. As far as the Kentucky bass, it is basically the same as a largemouth. Okay. Just a little bit different in coloration. Mm-hmm. And then when you get to the, you were asking about the other one.
Well, I know smallmouth. I know there's a difference.
Oh, a smallmouth, yes. Yeah. Smallmouth are kind of bronze looking. They really don't look that much like a largemouth. Right,
they don't. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the mouth is a little smaller, which obviously because they're called a smallmouth, but they're more of a bronze in color. Mm-hmm. And there are some large ones now. I'll tell you, up at the Potomac River, I went up there one time fishing, and we caught. Now I didn't catch a huge one, but I saw some guys who caught some really big ones, and those fish, they fight just like a largemouth. Right. But in the tournament I fish, you know, because like Fontana Lake, there's smallmouth in Fontana. Mm-hmm. The tournaments that I fish, you can weigh in largemouth, spots, or smallmouth in the tournaments that I fish. Okay. And in Kentucky, you can actually weigh in that Kentucky strain also.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know. I was just wondering because, you know, more up north, you see people catch more smallmouth than I don't know how many are down south, but I know they have them in North Carolina because I've seen the guys fishing in North Carolina on Lake Norman and stuff catching smallmouth. But you know, I've never caught them down here. Yeah.
You know, you don't catch them real often in Lake Norman, but once in a while you will. Okay. But I know we fished Lake Tillery a few weeks ago, and they're starting to catch some spots out of Tillery now where we didn't have them before. Really? Yeah, they're kind of they actually are trying to get rid of them at Lake Norman. Mm-hmm. They started bringing Florida strain largemouth up and releasing them into the lake, and they were asking folks if they caught them, you know, if they caught spots, just to take them home with them or eat them or, you know, take them some. And so I think that's still going on, but you know, I fished the winter series up there this past winter, and we always put them back. So, you know, they were still in the lake.
So I'm gonna go. You just said something. So, wintertime bass fishing. How much more difficult is it? I mean, I know we probably didn't go fishing a whole lot in the winter. We probably fished for other things, you know, catfish and stuff like that. You can still catch those. But yeah. I've seen some people catch some big bass in the wintertime. Is it just like about fishing slower, more just taking your time, you know, because they're not as they're more lethargic than I know. So
That's correct. Now fishing the winter trail at Lake Norman, it's not the same because spots are not like a largemouth. They're not affected by humidity. They're not affected by the barometric pressure like a largemouth is. So they bite pretty much all year.
really,
As far as largemouth go, they do slow down in the winter. They go deeper in the water because they're trying to stay warm. They get really lethargic, and you just really got to slow down. You know, you just fish a little slower. Like right now, here the temperature is between 55 and 63 degrees.
mm-hmm.
So they're getting ready to they're starting to get up and get on the beds.
Yeah.
And it depends on what part of the lake. Some of them, they're on the beds. Some of them are starting to come up, but they haven't gotten shallow yet.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's some places where you can go in there and just wear them out shallow. But March, April, and May are my favorite times of year to fish. And then in the fall, because they start feeding up again in the fall for winter. Okay. The summer is pretty tough because, you know, again, it's just like winter, except that it's in reverse because it's so hot in the summer that they eat to stay cooler. Mm-hmm. And they get lethargic again, just like in the winter.
I didn't know
that. But, you know, there's an art to it. Yes. The thing about bass fishing, you know, you can go out there with a cricket or a worm, you know, a live worm or a minnow, and you'll catch one once in a while.
Right.
But the thing that really gets me into bass fishing is I don't throw anything live. Everything I got is you know, it's a fake lure. And when you can fool that fish and get him to bite that,
yes,
that is the greatest feeling in the world.
Yes, indeed, man. Because all I do is use artificial. I don't use minnows and stuff like that. I mean, I might use a repeller or a devil horse or a torpedo, you know, things like that. But I never was big, like you said, that you use a jig. I've always like, so let me say this. I started off with a Zebco 202. Then Mr. Carruthers always used the Zebco 33. And that was like one of the best. They used to call him the trash fisherman because down here he was in a bass club and everybody else had their Daiwas and all their bait casters and you know, all those things. And I've owned the Ambassador and the Daiwa. I've owned a lot of those things. Open face, closed face. I've owned them probably all, you know, with my ugly sticks and all these kind of things like that I've had. And so once my son and I started, I wanted to teach him. And, you know, at first we started on open faces, but I ended up going right back to the Zebco 33 because it was easy. It was just easy. And I've caught nice sized bass on that Zebco 33.
Yes.
Mr. Carruthers, we were, there's a place called Owens Lake on the backside of Fort Jackson where the ranges were, or where the ranges are. I don't even know if the lake's still there. But let me tell you something. Quick story. And once again, thank you, because I'm loving this. Loving every bit of this right here. So, Mr. Carruthers, we were in Owens Lake, and he said, "Hey, man," he had this Motorola, Tom Mann's Motorola worm with a hook tail. He said, "Hey," yep. He said, "throw it right there by that tree." I was like, "Nah," you know, we're in a John boat, 12-foot John boat. He's like, "Throw it by that tree right there." He said, "It's just perfect." I was like, "Nah, I'm gonna throw over here," and so he threw over there. And oh my gosh, he's like, his thing was always got him. Like you said, the guy does the comedian stuff, but he was like, got him. And I was like, what? Yo. And he hit, and he was like, oh my gosh, man, that was a 10-pounder. And when he brought that fish up, I was like, oh my God. He said, I told you. And I was still really, really scared of fish that size. And I remember him just putting it on me and just feeling the girth of this fish. And I was like, this is amazing. And how big that fish was in the fight that it gave him. But he had that Zebco 33 with, I'm trying to think, it was some yellow fishing line. And I'm trying to think who makes the line. Oh, who makes the line? So long ago now. Anyway, but that Zebco 33, no matter what, catfish and everything, it just works so well. And so my son and I, when we go, we'll use, and I don't even mess with, the bait casters as much as I used to in the open faces. And it's just fine because I don't fish as much as I used to. But that Zebco 33 did work. So what did you first start off with? This is an extra question.
I actually started with a Zebco 33 myself because I was so frustrated when I was a kid that I couldn't throw that bait caster that I with that Zebco 33 for a long time until I learned to throw that bait caster. So you and I are a lot alike, and it's funny that you mentioned that, but like today, even today, we live here at the lake. Now they don't allow us to have a garage here where I live. Mm-hmm. So my boat is in storage. It's right outside the gate, and they have a building there where I keep it. Okay. It's really inexpensive, and it keeps my boat out of the water. But I got my fishing rods in there. Mm-hmm. But out here on the porch, because we have people that come down and they like to go fishing. So I bet I got 20 Zebcos out here on the porch. And some people don't. They're like, that's a kid's reel. I can't use it. So I'm like, okay. But I'll tell you now, pound for pound, that Zebco 33 is going to beat anything that you got there. But, we keep them out there for people that want to come and fish.
Awesome,
and
yeah.
You come with me one time.
Say again?
Or you got to come fish with me one time, and maybe we can.
I'm going to tell you, we're gonna have to make that happen when you're not so much on your tournament stuff, man. I would definitely come up there and enjoy some time with you, man, and get on the lake, man. I know one of my friends said, have you ever fished at Lake Murray here in Columbia?
I fished there one time. Okay. I really liked it. There's some big fish in there, buddy. I'm
100% beautiful lake. I had a friend of mine. He told me, he's like, hey man, let's go striper fishing. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah, come on out here. Cause he knew how much I love fishing. Cause I've taken him on Fort Jackson and stuff. And he used to live on he lived on Lake Murray. And then he lived in this other place that he had this big pond behind his house. So we went out there and we got on the pontoon and we were just trolling for stripers. And so I can get a little crazy, laugh, clown. I can do all that. But when I'm fishing, I'm at peace. And so he was just like, his friend was like, hey man, he's just back there, just whatever. So it was getting late in the golden time of the day when the sun's going down. And I was just back there and they were like, hey, are you okay? I was just like, look back up at them and I was like, yes, I'm more great. I'm great, and I was just like, you see the sun shining and we're out on the water and how beautiful this is. And then I said, I understand why they put a price on living on water. Because it's so beautiful. And to see that sun go down and just out there trolling and then bam, whoa, striper hits it. I caught a couple of nice stripers. It's like, man, it was just amazing, man. So I just wow, I'm reminiscing. I'm tripping. I'm tripping.
I love it.
Don, I'm having a great time, I'm telling you. So how technical can fishing get with all the different rods and lures and lines and sonars and boats and motors and apparel? I see.
Yeah, it can get very technical. In today's time, there's probably more people bass fishing than at any time ever that I ever remember.
Right.
And living here on Baden, I can tell a difference because the fish have literally seen everything there is,
right?
And so they get really finicky and really hard to catch. So you really have to work hard to get a bite in some days. I do a few things different than a lot of folks do. I'll take a paint marker or some chartreuse color, and I'll change that bait up a little bit, give it a little bit of different color, add a little bit of red to it. Because I'm telling you, when the water's muddy, especially in the spring, they get mad, it seems like, at that red. They love that red. They'll eat it. And so, they've got live target out now. It's a sonar that shows in a 360-degree pattern. So you see stuff that you've never seen before on your graph.
Wow.
It'll show you a rock pile 50 yards to your left, or a brush pile that's 50 yards to your right, that you never knew it was there. Wow. Unless you just trolled over the top, you would have never known it's there. So that has become really, like, if you watch the Bassmasters or you watch MLF, all of those guys use that. And, you know, they can look out there 50 yards and they'll make a cast out there and they'll say, there's some fish right there. Let me see if I can make them bite. And it's really made them look like they're great fishermen. And they really are, if they can fool that fish into biting. But it's just amazing the stuff that they've got out there now. They've got, I've got one of these on my boat. It's called a hydrowave. And I've got the Kevin Van Dam series. But what it does is it puts a noise that imitates bait fish to it'll actually entice the fish into biting. And it'll actually cause them to school, because I've had that happen. I pulled up on a point. There was a guy fishing there. He hadn't had a bite the whole time. And he moved down a little bit. And I said, are you okay with me coming around you and fishing that point? And he said, yeah. So I pulled up there and I dropped the trolling motor and I turned that thing on and put it on the bait fish schooling sound. And all of a sudden they got fired up and I caught 25 fish off of that point.
Wow.
I mean, I was just killing them one after another. And I looked down at him and he was just looking at me, shaking his head, you know. But I mean, there's so many tools out there to use now. Power poles. I've got those on my boat. They're like shallow anchors that you can use. They come in real handy when the fish are on the bed. Gotcha. Because if the water's clear, you're going to be sight fishing anyway. You're going to have to pull up there and put your anchors down so your boat don't move, because, you know, with that trolling motor running, it's going to blow that water up and they're going to know you're there. But if you pull up there and drop those anchors, you can kind of watch them and you'll see them swim around, and you can pitch that bait right in that bed. And you know, a lot of times they're going to pick that thing up and move it. But if you watch them the way they're moving, you can set the hook in the other direction. A lot of times you'll catch those fish that, you know, a lot of people won't, because they're just going to rear back on it. But there's just different techniques you can use for that. And again, my favorite, like I told you before, my favorite bait is a jig, because it imitates a crawdad. And that's the one thing that fish love. That's their main food. And so pitching that jig, you know, a lot of people don't like it because they don't really know how to fish it. But I'll tell you right now, this time of year, a white swim jig with a little Zoom trailer that's white, you're going to kill it. It'll break your arm down here right now.
See, that was one thing, man. I have bought jigs, and just like you said, not really knowing how to use it. I would always watch the guys on TV use them or whatever like that, but of course it takes practice, and it was just so heavy. And in my mind, I was always like, fish don't want that heavy thing like that. You know, I was so into using, you know, soft plastics, using you know, worms, that was my go-to thing. So I'd have jigs in my tackle box, but I never used them because I'd never caught a fish on them. I was just like, I'm not using that jig. But I would always see, you know, Jimmy Houston and those guys using those spinner baits, you know, the big buzz baits and all those things like that, and catching fish. Now I've used a rooster tail. I've, you know, but it was always the plastic worm for me. It's always been my go-to thing. So I've never learned how to use, but I've seen people catch, of course, but I never learned how to use.
There's nothing more exciting than top water bite. If you throw in that buzz bait, or you throw that little popar or a zero spook or something like that, there's nothing like it. They'll blow that water up. I've had them knock that bait 3 feet in the air before when they hit it. I mean, it's crazy.
So you say that there's a little pond called Hazard Pond on Fort Jackson at the golf course that the golfers would hit over. And so I got there early. Like, you know, we get there real early in the morning before the golfers come. We were supposed to be over there, but of course we're fishermen. We're going to do what we do. So I cast that doggone, I had a torpedo. I cast that torpedo out, and then I just start. I wasn't, you know, it wasn't a constant retrieve. I was, you know, and man, something hit that. That lure went so far in the air, it took my heart away.
Yes.
How high it knocked that doggone lure, and then I just, once it came back down, I was just like, it's gonna come back again. It's gonna hit it again. It never did, but man, just what you just said, that was so amazing. There is nothing like a top water bite. There's nothing. It's most exciting.
Absolutely.
I'll never forget it. I just got that feeling right there when you just said it again, and I said it. So man, oh, that's crazy. So, who is your favorite television show angler host? Mine is Jimmy Houston. Who's your favorite?
I love Bill Dance. He's always my favorite. I especially love his blooper reels. Those things are so
amazing.
Now I will tell you about Jimmy Houston. It's been many years ago. My wife went to the dollar store in Kannapolis, and I went in there with her, and they had books up on the wall. And I just happened to walk up, and there was a book that had been written by Jimmy Houston. And it was just a bunch of fishing stories from him over the years. So I bought that thing and I took it home to read it. And there's a story in there where he's going to the Bassmaster Classic in Florida. He, Bill Dance, Hank Parker, Roland Martin, and I don't remember, there was another one. They were all traveling together. They stopped at a gas station, like a truck stop in Georgia, at like 3 o'clock in the morning to fill up. And he said, I was filling my truck up, and I said, I saw these two guys in a pickup. They were hunters. They were in their camouflage, and said they were sitting there kind of talking to each other, looking at me. He said, oh God, these guys recognize me. So the guy comes up to me and he goes, hey, I know you. You're that guy on TV. And he goes, Jimmy Houston. He goes, no, you're not Jimmy Houston. You're Roland Martin. And he said, about that time, Roland goes walking by. He goes, no, I'm Jimmy Houston, but that's Roland Martin right there. The guy had $100 bill in his wallet. That was the only thing he had, and he wanted him to sign it. He said, I signed it Jimmy Houston, and the guy got mad at him, and went and got in the truck and pulled off. And he said he laughed so hard. He said, that guy could have had both of our autographs, but he didn't. So a few years ago, Jimmy came to Bass Pro Shops here in Concord. So I told my wife, I said, I have got to go and get him to autograph my book. So I go over there, and there's like 60 people in line. So I patiently wait. And my wife is over there by the fish aquarium. And I finally get up to him, and I shake his hand, and I hand him the book. And I said, how you doing, Roland? I hope you're doing good. I was just wondering if you'd sign my book. And he looked at me real funny, and I said, you can't lie to me. I know you're not Jimmy Houston. And he knew exactly what I was talking about. I started dying laughing. And my wife got so embarrassed about that. She was like, what did you say?
That is awesome.
I said, it's just two fishermen having a good time. And we hugged my neck, and we talked, and it was so much fun. You know, that's the brotherhood of fishermen. We're like a band of gypsies. You know, we travel, we're together. We have such a good time together. And it's just like a bunch of brothers out there fishing.
Indeed. And so every weekend I would watch Jimmy Houston, Roland Martin, Bill Dance. There's certain things about them, each of them, that I like really. To me, to be honest with you, Bill Dance is probably the most technical one to me. He really, because I would just pay so much attention to him, you know, got the Tennessee hat on, and I just like his conversation and all. The thing I like about Jimmy Houston, I guess the best, is because he's just always laughing and jovial, and you know, and Roland Martin, oh son, you know, he was just different. Roland Martin was just a different guy, you know. he, of course, he was believable, but it's like Roland Martin, he was just different. But Jimmy Houston, Bill Dance, Roland Martin, and there's a few other guys that I really love. I really love, but those three guys, me growing up, I watched them. Nobody else in my family, nobody else, and they'd always wonder, like, they're like, "Are you watching fishing, man? Did you get up before everybody else just to watch a fishing show?" I was like, "Yes." And then we're gonna leave up out of here. You better be lucky. This might be one day that we're not going fishing, or I've been gone. But man, I love those shows, man. And I still actually on on my cable, I'll go out there and on demand. I still go out there and watch. I just watched some Jimmy Houston shows the other day, and then his wife just passed not too long ago. And yeah, just a great guy. So I'm sorry for taking up so much of your time, man, but I'm enjoying it.
Oh, no.
Just thank you, man. I can't tell you enough. Thank you. So how often do you fish for other species?
Not very often. I will go with my friends. We'll go crappie fishing from time to time because they like to eat them. So I'll go with them. Sometimes I take them on my boat. Sometimes we go out on their pontoon boat and we'll catch those. That's normally in the spring or in the fall. And I might go 4 or 5 times a year doing that. I used to go deep sea fishing a lot, but that was a bunch of my lineman brothers that I worked with back when we were on trucks. And we would go once a year, but all of those guys have either died off or retired. Gotcha. And really it's just a few of us now. And so we don't really do that anymore. Gotcha. And, I've got one friend of mine that likes to catfish. He actually lives across the street from me. So every once in a while, he and I'll go. And I kind of enjoy that. I'm not a big catfish person, but they are fun to catch and they get really big. Yes, indeed. We caught one down here not long ago that was about 62 pounds.
Now, I remember like Bill Dance, that's when, of course, he always caught massive bass. But when he would go catfishing, like in the river, he used to catch some big catfish, like some big channel cats. But the biggest fish that I've seen anybody catch was Roland Martin. And he was down at Santee Cooper, or he's at Santee Cooper or Lake Marion. I mean, it's right there, the same. So, holy man. I don't know if it was like 60 something pounds and he caught a few, like 30, 40, whatever. This dude took him out and man, it was unbelievable just to see those gigantic catfish, big blues. They were big blue catfish. And so I was just like, wow, it was unbelievable. So always loved Roland, always caught the biggest bass down there. Just like I said earlier, Lake Okeechobee doing his thing. Amazing. And I can't wait to get down there with the Carruthers, but I just told them, keep me away from the alligators. I don't know if they're going to be able to do it. I said, I might not go out there if I got to worry about an alligator, because I'm afraid of that. And I know how they would always mess with me about snakes and things like that, that I was truly scared of. I was like, man, come on, don't do that to me, man. Come on, man.
Yeah.
But awesome.
That's right.
So what is your ultimate goal as an angler?
As an angler, I would really, really love to get a win in the Toyota series. That's one of my goals. That would be the ultimate for me because I'm getting older. I know that I'm not going to make it to the Bassmasters or anything like that. But if I can make it to the Toyota series, and I've got the confidence, I know I can fish with those guys. Right. But to get there and win would be amazing. Gotcha. That would be an ultimate goal for me.
Awesome. So this is the last question. I don't want it to be, man. I'm trying to think of some other things I can ask you. I'm telling you, this is great to me. I'm not being honest with you. So tell me who you're sponsored by and about your favorite rig setup, and then you can tell me whatever else you want to talk about.
Okay. I have a rod sponsorship with Enigma Fishing. You guys can go to www.enigmafishing.com enigmafishing.com right now. In the month of April, we've got a buy one, get one sale. You buy a rod, you get a rod. You buy a reel, you get a reel. Great prices. In my opinion, they're the best rods on the market. Aaron Martins, rest in peace, was one of the guys on the Bass Tour. That was his main sponsor, Enigma.
Okay.
And Jesse Terraconte is the owner of the company. He fishes the Elite Series. He's a good friend of mine. These guys are top notch and they'll take care of you. I'm also sponsored by Local Lures Custom Jigs. They're out of Salisbury. It's just a little local company. In my opinion, the best jig on the market. I've been throwing them for several years. I don't throw anything else as far as it goes. He makes absolutely awesome jigs. Vector Hooks. Vector Hooks is out of Florida. They're another one of my sponsors. Sharpest hooks on the market. And I can tell you that for a fact because I stuck one in my thumb last year and I had to go to the yard to get it out.
Wow.
I can tell you, are extremely sharp. Woo Tungsten. That is a tungsten weight company. They're one of my sponsors. You guys can check them out as well. They've got specials going on all the time, and that would be www.wootungsten.com. And also Riot Baits. That's my last sponsor, but they're a local company out of North Carolina. They're actually out of Lake Norman area. It's where they're from. Matt Stark is a good friend of mine. He owns the company. I kind of came on board with them last year. They make a really good tungsten jig they're a little like smaller profile.
Okay.
I use those when you're fishing for spots or for smallmouth. They work really good. I mean, you can catch largemouth on them too, but they work really good for those two species. They make great trailers, and they've got crankbaits. They've got like a rattle trap type bait. They got several baits out there. You can check them out at riotbaits.com. And if you want to place an order, I'll give you my little special code. When you get to the end and it says put in your coupon code, you can put in Don, D-O-N, Bud, B-U-D, and that'll give you 15% off your order.
Awesome.
And that's me in a nutshell.
Hey, man, listen, just like I said, man, you can talk about whatever you want to, man. It's all beautiful. I've enjoyed this so much. The only other question I want to ask you is, what kind of boat do you have?
I have a 2018 Triton. It's a 179 RX. It's a 18.5-foot Triton. It's got a 115 Mercury Pro XS on it, 4-stroke. It burns very little gas. I've got Humminbird electronics. Got a 9 at the console and a 7 up front. I've got a Minn Kota 4-Trex trolling motor. I've got that Kevin Van Dam series Hydro Wave on there, and I've got power poles on the back of it, and it's a fish catching machine.
I can see it. Listen, that's beautiful with the power poles and how they look and everything. Hey, man, so Triton has been. I kind of remember when Triton first started coming into being, when it was, got popular, because you always had, like, everybody wanted that Ranger boat, and it was like Ranger, and then it was like this Skeeter came out, and there was Javelin, but Bass Trackers, and they were aluminum, but they have some fiberglass ones also, but Bass Trackers was like more the affordable boat that you could get and go out there. So I always thought that I was going to have something like that. I never pulled because I had so much other stuff going on. But I wanted
for a lot of years. I wanted a Ranger until I rode in one, and I hear a lot of guys say their boat ride's good, but every Ranger I ever rode in was pretty rough.
Really?
And same with a Skeeter. Skeeters are a fast boat, and they're a really nice boat. they're just not my favorite.
Right.
But I fished with a fella a couple times in his boat. He had a Triton, and I fell in love with that boat because I wanted a nitro for years and
Nitro,
years.
yeah. So I said nitro, but you Triton, yeah, nitro also, yeah, indeed.
But
yeah, I'm sorry.
Those Tritons, they got a 40-gallon live well. That's the biggest live well market,
Right.
and it's a double divided live well, so you got plenty for your fish. And if you fishing in a tournament where both of you get to weigh, then you got plenty of room for both of you to put your fish in there.
Wow.
But honestly, I think Triton is probably, in my opinion, and it's just like anybody else's, but to me, they are the best boat on the market. I really love it. It's smooth. I don't have any problems with it. And I'm telling you, those 4-strokes are amazing. You don't, I remember back in the day when you had to mix the oil and the gas. And
right.
That's you don't do none of that with a 4-stroke.
So the 4-stroke, you said it's a Mercury?
Yes, it's a Mercury Pro XS 4-stroke.
So you remember when Honda first came out with those 4-strokes and how everybody was like that Honda motor?
Yeah.
And then, so you got Evinrude. Evinrude still doing their thing?
Evinrude, I think they are still around. I haven't seen an Evinrude in a long time.
Really?
The Yamaha is around, and those motors are built like a bullet, and they're, tough as nails. As a matter of fact, my best friend, he's got a Triton like I do, but he's got a Yamaha on his instead of a Mercury. But I've just always had good service out of Mercury. I've ran Mercury motors for years. Gotcha. And just, I don't have any problems with them.
So as far as, and this will be the last thing that we'll end it up, as far as the upkeep of that boat, how much upkeep does it take? I have a few friends that have some boats, and they're like, it's a lot of upkeep when, having a boat. An old man told me one time that for me to go dig a hole and throw money in it, because I said, why you want me to do that? He said, well, it's the same thing as owning a boat. Because there's nothing cheap on that boat, and break. And, they are expensive to upkeep. Now, I've had really good results with this boat. I keep the oil changed in it. I keep the lower unit oil changed in it. And it's a little expensive doing all that, but I only do it one time a year. And other than that, I don't have any other problems. My boat, I've had it for 4 years now, and I don't have any problems at all with it. And I just keep the motor, I keep it serviced and, keep it greased. And, now I spit shine that thing now. I remember when I got a little bit of mud on the carpet, I was out there with the carpet cleaner, and my wife laughing at me. And I said, it'll be all right. I said, I just want it to look good. So I keep it waxed and washed and keep it in where it, it'll keep its value. Indeed. Love, man. Love. So Don, just thank you so much once again. I just had one of the best times just learning. You've educated me on a lot of things, and I can't wait till all my fishing people, really. A lot of people like, I didn't know you like fishing like that. Yes, what is yes, I do. I really do. And this has been great for me, man. And so
well, just holler at me one weekend and I'll come down there to Lake Murray and we'll go.
And listen, I don't mind coming up there to you either. I don't. I'm telling you, we will talk about it. We'll definitely talk about it.
I got a spare bedroom right here waiting on you.
Man, listen, you got me excited. I'm telling you, there's no doubt. I love fishing, man. I really do. So, ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Live and Loud with the Lord, and this is a special edition. This is the special fishing edition. We started off with music and photography and all those things, but I really wanted to have a conversation with this young man about fishing. So thank you again. And ladies and gentlemen, it is Mr. Don Leffler. He's that guy. And I call him Mr. Set That Hook. Make sure you set that hook. Make sure you set that hook. But once again, man, thank you for being here. I'm honored and I really appreciate it. Thank you.
thank you so much for having me on. I'm really honored by that.
Indeed, indeed.
Like salads, rock to reggae, face to ballads, hip hop, rap to country, clean to hardcore.